tonight.
It's extremely unprecedented, today's hearing.
One Texas judge could totally change the way women get abortions in this country. The ruling, no matter what it is, will have a seismic impact. Plus, aiming for a border security shakeup, why one Texas lawmaker hopes to charge some migrants with a hefty fine and felony. And Texas takes over the state's largest school district.
Who's to say that other school districts aren't next?
What it means and how some lawmakers are responding. Capitol Tonight starts right now. Thanks so much for joining us here on Capitol Tonight. I'm Augustine Garfias, filling in for Karina Kling. A judge at a courthouse in Amarillo heard arguments today in a case that could impact access to abortion nationwide. Judge Matthew Kaczmarek is deciding whether to uphold FDA approval of a medication used in more than half of abortions in the U.S. Mifepristone is the first of two pills used in medication abortions. It's been on the market for more than 20 years. But a group of abortion rights opponents filed a lawsuit saying the FDA misused its authority when it approved the drug back in 2000. According to preliminary data from Texas Health and Human Services, medication abortions have been on the decline since 2020, but remains the most common method in the state. This comes after weeks of speculation and little details released to the public. Our Washington reporter Rena Diamante has more on the high-stakes hearing.
It was a busy Wednesday at a federal courthouse in Amarillo, where a Trump-appointed judge heard oral arguments over a challenge seeking to upend the Food and Drug Administration's more than 2-decade-old approval of mifepristone, a drug used for medication abortions. Members of the Women's March, which supports abortion rights, demonstrated outside.
It's really poorly reasoned, it lacks legal merit, and the plaintiffs lack standing. And so the fact that this case is even being heard at all is really concerning and honestly makes us question the legitimacy of this court.
The group Alliance Defending Freedom, which worked to overturn Roe v. Wade last summer, filed the unprecedented lawsuit arguing pregnancy is not an illness. In a statement to Spectrum News following his arguments, the group's counsel, Eric Baptist, said in part, "The approval has always stood on shaky legal and moral ground. And after years of evading responsibility, it's time for the government to do what it's legally required to do."
We at Human Coalition serve thousands and thousands of women every single year who are seeking abortion. We know when they call us back, traumatized from their experiences of taking the pill, being told it was as easy as taking an aspirin, not knowing when to go to the ER when complications arise.
Attorneys for the FDA argued pregnancy can be life-threatening in some cases, so the parameters of the drug's approval were valid. They went on to say the drug is safe and effective and was thoroughly tested. Today, medication abortions account for more than half of abortions across the country. If Judge Matthew Kaczmarek strikes down the approval, it could mean the pill would be unavailable in all states, even where abortion is legal.
Millions of women have used it. I myself have used mifepristone in a case where I had a miscarriage. One thing that a lot of people don't know is that mifepristone is often used for miscarriage care. And so I myself have used it, and I'm so grateful that I had that option.
In perhaps a moment acknowledging how unprecedented this is, Judge Kaczmarek asked if there were examples of the court removing an FDA-approved drug after many years and was told there were none. The judge said he would rule as soon as possible. In Washington, Rena Diamante, Capitol Tonight.
And joining us now for more on this is Seema Mohapatra. She's a health law professor at Southern Methodist University. Seema, thanks for your time tonight. In your view, did the U.S. government take the right steps to approve mifepristone, and how so?
Absolutely. They followed all the protocols. It's been 2 decades, over 2 decades since it's been approved. And although that they went through an accelerated pathway, that actually, was a full review that was done. And the safety record of the drug has proven to be much safer than aspirin and, other drugs that are easily available in the drugstore.
How unprecedented is it for certain groups to challenge the FDA's approval of certain drugs?
It's extremely unprecedented. Today's hearing, it showed that the attorneys had to admit that this has never been done before, and especially after 20 some years, questioning the approval of a very safe and effective drug.
Judges make big decisions all the time, but how significant is this one for one judge to possibly make this decision that's going to affect the entire country?
It would be unprecedented. I mean, just the fact that one judge sitting in court in Texas could affect the way that access to health care is available throughout the country, regardless of what the state legislatures think, is unprecedented for sure.
Turning back to the proper steps to approve drugs like mifepristone, is there a review process every so few years, I should say, like every 5 or every 10? Or we know that this has been approved for a long time. Yes, I mean, the safety record of mifepristone for, as I mentioned, is kind of extremely safe, extremely effective. And so, this lawsuit, if it ends up having a FDA-approved drug taken off the market, is going to have huge public health consequences because, a lot of other drugs that are available might be at risk, and that's going to affect the way that healthcare is administered throughout the United States. And so we have something called federal preemption, where the FDA approval should preempt any kind of state laws. That is what should be, at issue here. However, it is not clear, given the court that it's in and the lawsuit, how the judge is actually going to rule. If the judge does strike down the FDA's approval, what are the next steps that we're looking at here? Well, we'll for sure get an appeal kind of immediately, for sure, and probably a request for a stay while the appeal is being heard. That's what probably the immediate steps are going to be. But there is going to be a question about how this is going to impact access to this medication, how the manufacturer is going to react. And we know that there is a one-drug regimen that is available. However, it is not as efficacious for the patients as the two-drug regimen that includes mifepristone. Are there any other options for women should the judge choose to strike down this approval? Absolutely. So misoprostol, the other drug in the two-drug regimen, in countries where there is no access to mifepristone, we know that misoprostol can be used alone. It's just going to be a little bit longer process, more uncomfortable for the pregnant person and women. And so it is not an ideal situation, but there's definitely that is one option. And unfortunately, when you make it more difficult to access medication abortion, the result is usually that it's going to be a delay, which may require a surgical abortion. And depending on the state that you're in, you might have to travel for that. That's going to be more expensive and more dangerous for the pregnant person. We will have to end it there. Seema Mohapatra, we appreciate your time tonight. Thank you so much. Today, the Republican-led Committee on Homeland Security was at the border holding a field hearing in McAllen, Texas. The GOP leaders were vocal in their criticism of the Biden administration's border policies, taking aim at the president and Secretary Mayorkas, blaming them for recent events at the border.
Yet the people poured across the southern border, excess of 6 million people. Why? This massive crisis, this human tragedy, is the result of decisions and the incompetence of this secretary.
They also criticized Democrats for not attending and denied claims the hearing was just a political stunt. One of the many border bills before the Texas legislature would create a state-run border protection union with a chief appointed by the governor. If passed, individuals who cross onto private property illegally could be charged with a felony and a $10,000 fine. But as you might expect, migrants hope this bill won't pass. Our Charlotte Scott reports.
In the border town of El Paso, migrants sit on the sidewalk with luggage and blankets. We came here by force because the gangs threatened to kill us and they took our house away. My wife also lost her car. They stole everything from us. That was Johnny Javier Cabrera, who recently crossed into El Paso illegally. He came to Texas from Honduras and wishes he could work. He says we're not doing anything wrong. We are not doing harm. We are not harming anyone. But a bill filed by Tyler Area Representative Matt Schaefer would task local law enforcement with arresting, detaining, and deterring individuals crossing the border illegally. The state-run Border Protection Unit could also charge them with a third-degree felony for walking onto private property. Panhandle Area Representative Cody Harris is a co-author of the bill.
We want people to come here legally. We're not anti-immigration. We want people to follow the process.
One provision of the bill says law-abiding citizens without felony convictions could be allowed to participate in this effort, but would have no arresting authority. Because of this, the Mexican-American Legislative Caucus labels the bill an extreme vigilante death squad's policy. The caucus chair, Dallas Area Representative Victoria Niave Criado, wrote in a statement, "This dangerous, radical, and unconstitutional proposal, which empowers border vigilantes to hunt migrants and racially profile Latinos, is going to result in the death of innocent people."
And it's disappointing that they've used this kind of vitriolic language.
Despite opposing views, the bill is a priority for Texas House Speaker Dade Phelan. He says addressing the state's border and humanitarian crisis is a must-pass issue for the chamber this year. Representative Harris guesses this bill would cost the state billions of dollars. He says tax dollars must be spent on border security, even though he wishes that money could be allocated to public schools and property tax relief instead.
We'd rather not be spending the money on this, taxpayers' money, but we're in a position where we have to because the federal government won't.
Governor Greg Abbott has already spent several $billions on his border security effort, Operation Lone Star. It hasn't stopped people from trying to cross into Texas, like Cabrera, who says he doesn't want people to be punished for accidentally crossing onto private land while coming to Texas for a better life. He says we came to fight and get ahead. It would be very unfair. For Capital Tonight, I'm Charlotte Scott.
A congressman from Texas revealed who he wants to be the next president of the United States, even though his first choice hasn't entered the race. U.S. Rep. Chip Roy endorsed Florida Governor Ron DeSantis as his pick for the White House. DeSantis has been the focus of a lot of speculation lately over whether or not he'll run in 2024, but he hasn't announced any intention of being a candidate just yet. So to come on Capitol Tonight, the state's school district overhaul. Hear the reaction from state lawmakers. And Texas Democrats propose their education funding plan, how they want to use the state's surplus to help schools. We'll be right back. Let's get a check of some of the other political stories making headlines. Some Uvalde families want to join news organizations' lawsuit against the Department of Public Safety to get records related to the deaths of their loved ones. So far, officials have refused to release the records like body cam footage and internal communications from the shooting. Attorneys for the accused Santa Fe High School shooter are trying to get the judge removed from that case. The judge is being accused of bias after a new mental health evaluation was ordered for the suspect. The defense claims the judge is working to find someone who will say the suspect is competent to stand trial. And the Texas Education Agency has officially confirmed it will take control over Houston ISD. The TEA will replace Superintendent Millard House II and appoint a board of managers after June 1st. The move is in response to poor academic outcomes at one high school in the state's largest school district. And joining us now is Texas Senator Paul Bettencourt. Senator, thanks so much for taking some time out of your busy day to join us and have a good chat.
Right, be happy to. Thanks for having me.
As we just reported about the state taking over Houston ISD, the largest school district in the state, do you feel that that action is justified, and what impact might it have on students in that school district?
Well, as the author of Senate Bill 1365, which restored the A through F accountability system in Texas for public education, Commissioner Morath only had two choices. He could either close Wheatley High School or he could bring in a board of managers. He made the right decision because the problems at Wheatley High School are just a symptom of bad board governance that goes back at least 10 years. And as the second longest serving member of the Senate Education Committee, I can tell you there's been serious problems with board governance with HISD for a long time.
Well, let's turn now to property tax relief. I know they call you the tax man. You are quite enthusiastic about the Senate plan unveiled yesterday, but the Senate plan and House plan on this topic are not necessarily aligned. How do the two bodies come together on this particular issue?
Well, it comes together by putting a plan out that saves, in the Senate case, $16.5 billion of taxpayer money. And those first two bills rocketed out of Senate Finance 17-0 with every Democrat and Republican supporting them. The first two plans will save the average homeowner up to $800 on a yearly basis, and that's 5.72 million homesteads in the state. And over 65s, all 2 million of them get over $1,000 off. And that's just the first two bills, not even counting the business tax relief that's coming. We've got a great package, and importantly, we figured out how to get compression into all the school districts in the state. Now look, in the Austin area, in Houston and San Antonio, a lot of people were very surprised. Their tax bill was down this last year. And it was shocking because they weren't expecting it. But that's part of what we've been trying to do in the Senate, and with the support of Lieutenant Governor Patrick and my membership, we've been able to pass these bills year after year. And these are blockbusters. They're unprecedented. They've never been passed at this magnitude before.
Let's turn to voting now. You and your colleagues in the Senate overwhelmingly passed a bill to make illegal voting a felony again. What impact, if any, do you think this will have on voter turnout next year if it makes it to the governor and it is enacted?
Well, first off, we've had very good turnout in the state of Texas, really, for the last 4 election cycles. We've been over 8 million in turnout, and in the last presidential election, it's over 11 million, 66% turnout. So these bills are designed to actually declare a felony like it used to be for 50 years. Because if somebody knowingly violates the law, that's the level of charge that has been on the books for a long time. Bottom line is that we see, however, all these bills, SB 1, all these bills that have passed, there's no real proof or discussion that voter turnout is down. The reality is you've got good candidates, or you have an interest like the Texas did in the presidential election, turnout's off the scale at 66%. Turnout drives elections because of who's on the ballot, not because perceived issues on voter integrity.
We've got about 40 seconds here. You filed a bill to allow Texas to permanently stay on daylight saving time. What do you see as the advantages, and how much support are you getting from your colleagues?
I'm getting tremendous off the cuff social media support and members, because I think everybody just wants one time. They just want let's go to one time, and let's make it daylight savings time, because the sun's up right now and we're still working, okay? And I just want not to have to do this, fall forward or back, spring forward or back. It's a relic of the past. Let's end it. Let's go to one time in Texas.
Senator Betancourt, we appreciate your time. We know you're very busy, so thanks for coming in.
That's right. Well, we'll all live long and prosper after a good property tax relief bill of $16.5 billion back in people's pockets.
Yes, sir. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, Texas Democrats have unveiled their school funding plan. They want to use the state's $33 billion budget surplus. The money would go to raising teacher salaries, spending more per student, and funding public schools by enrollment numbers. Lawmakers say the state should increase funding for schools so they can meet the proper standards instead of taking over school districts.
We should all focus on the students. How is this in the best interest of our students?
House Democrats say their plan would spend more than $1,000 per student compared to Republicans' proposal of $50. A Texas House committee is considering 2 bills to increase school safety. One is from Rep. Sean Thierry, who wants to install silent panic buttons in all classrooms. The TEA adopted a new administrative rule requiring school campuses to have silent panic alert systems in place by 2024. This bill would put the policy into law and let districts choose the system that works for them. Another proposal came from Rep. Barbara Gervin Hawkins. Her bill would require schools to install bleeding control kits on all campuses and teach kids as young as 4th grade to use those. So to come here on Capitol Tonight, 3 Texas women missing in Mexico, how their loved ones are hoping U.S. officials will help find them. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Welcome back. Missing in Mexico. U.S. authorities are looking for 3 Texas women who disappeared after crossing the border to sell clothes at a flea market. Our Adolfo Muniz spoke to a family member of one of the missing women and has the latest.
It's very hard to, but Maria, despite of her anguish, tries to go on with her normal life. But once she's back home from work, there's nothing to do but wait. Her mom, Marina Perez, her aunt, Maritza Perez, and their friend, Doralicia Cervantes, have been missing for almost 3 weeks after what seemed like a regular trip to Montemorelos, Mexico.
So they would go every other weekend to go sell clothing. And we would always tell them, that it's dangerous. But you can't keep them from going because it's their hometown. It's where they have all their memories.
But then something went wrong when her mom didn't come back and she couldn't get in touch with her. It was the worst day of her life, she says.
I think that's the last picture I have with her. I was very desperate. I think I called her 1,000,000 times, but it would just go straight to voicemail.
After they were reported lost, now the state of Nuevo León is looking for them. There's nothing left to do but to wait by the phone. Mexican authorities told her that they made it as far as China, Nuevo León, 140 miles away. 1 hour away from their destination.
Well, the authorities are doing everything they can. They've been communicating with us really well. It's harder because they don't have much technology out there as they do in Matamoros, a bigger city. But I know that everything that can be done is being done.
But what could be making it harder, she feels, is that they are not American citizens, only permanent residents. The numbers of people missing in Mexico are frightening. More than 100,000 have been gone. Many of them have been missing for years. Maria knows very well that it is an area controlled by the cartels, but she used to believe that they don't mess with normal people. And no one could hurt her mom.
Because my mom and my tia, they're good people. I used to have that mentality, like if you're good and you're fine. I guess I was wrong.
And now she just hopes that what she's going through and what happened to her mom may help others to not live the same.
For other people to know, think about it twice. It's not safe.
That is going to do it for this edition of Capital Tonight. Be sure to join us tomorrow for the latest in Texas politics. Until then, thanks so much for watching and good night.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. For more refreshing stories about your community, click the subscribe button over here. You can also download our Spectrum News app and tune in to Channel 55 on Dish and DirecTV to get live news coverage, weather updates every 10 minutes, and more. We'll see you then.